Welcome back to your soon-to-be favorite podcast. I'm Angelica.
And I'm Kelsey.
And this is
Here We Grow. What's up, y'all?
I think I always wait for you to talk first.
I noticed that just now. I'm like, is it me? I'm like, okay, well, hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite podcast.
To your favorite podcast.
To your favorite podcast. Coming at you live.
Our last episode was pretty good. I really listened to the whole thing, which I don't normally do because I've already edited it. But that was pretty good.
We're hilarious.
We are so funny.
And like, honestly, anyone who doesn't think so can like suck my dick.
Remember,
So like,
I don't think you replied to this, but I sent you a quote that you said in the episode. You were talking about the Lion's Den, and you were like,
oh, yeah.
You were telling Mario you should go or whatever. Mario's like, okay, when do you want to come? Yeah. Kids say the darnest things. It's funny because you were saying it as Mario's voice, but I know Mario didn't say that. You said that for him. You're like, okay, when do you want to come?
Oh, like you thought I was purposely making a joke?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying it's funny because it's not even your voice. Like you're telling the story of what happened. It's not even your voice that you misspoke on.
My bad.
Anyway.
Okay. Today we will be talking about some stories, and we'll have some statistics.
Yeah, some definitions.
So yeah.
A conversation
in honor of Black History Month.
They sound like they're in trouble. We're going to be having a conversation with you today.
Guys, we need to have a talk.
Yeah. You're hooked on phonics. Have you seen the commercials?
No.
Hooked on phonics?
What's phonics? Oh, come on. Don't make that face.
Gosh.
Just tell me. Don't belittle me. Just educate me.
So it's like, it's a nostalgia thing. So that's why I'm shocked that you don't know it. A famous commercial when we were kids was Hooked on Phonics, which was like a book and DVD set that you could get for your kids to help them read. It was like on the infomercials, basically. It's called Hooked on Phonics. And phonics means like letter sounds, alphabet and stuff like that. So
does not ring a bell.
It's still around, apparently. Probably can just get it online now, but the ad that's out for it recently is parents sitting down with their child and they're like, you've got to stop, you're addicted. And the child's like, I know, I'm hooked on phonics, but blah 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 blah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to look this up right now.
Okay, go ahead. Put like hooked on. No, this one I just said is new.
Oh, okay, but
there were old commercials back in the day. It's still around. Okay. So today, I'm sure you've seen the episode title. You've seen the description. We have yet to write this episode. Correct. We have not. We're doing this episode in honor of Black History Month. This will be the last Wednesday of the month. So we're going to do Black History Month. Angelica has a Black History story for us, possibly two if we can get to both of them. And then I'm going to discuss the true meaning of privilege today, which has been on my list of things that I wanted to talk about on the podcast for a while because of a conversation I had with someone. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go over privilege. Even if you think you know what privilege is, please stick around because when I was researching for this, there are parts of privilege that I had not even thought about yet. So, but first we have a quote of the week.
Oh my God, I totally forgot. Did we do that last week?
No. we just forget all the time.
Hey, it's our show.
We're not the rememberers of the group is what I usually say.
We don't hold the rememberaries.
We don't hold the rememberaries. No. Okay. We have to talk about liberating minds as well as liberating society. Angela Davis. I included that quote because, well, first of all, I looked them up 30 seconds ago. But I found that one, and I thought that was fitting because something we do on the podcast is try to educate people when we can on the episodes that are planned for that, but also kind of change your mind of what society makes you believe. And I think we're going to be talking a lot about that today with privilege. Yes. Oh. Just a mouth.
I debated on whether to wait to tell you, but I was like, oh, she already caught me like hesitating or like thinking something.
We forgot to turn our light on. It's on now. I thought that would be important because we're going to be talking about something that will change people's minds a little bit about privilege today. And in previous episodes, we've breaking societal norms and things like that. And liberating means, just to bring it full circle, the definition of liberate is to set someone or something free from a situation, especially imprisonment or slavery, in which their liberty is severely restricted. Free a country, city, or people from enemy occupation, or release from a state or situation that limits freedom or thought or behavior. So in that quote, we say, we have to talk about liberating minds as well as liberating society. We talk all the time about freedom in society, but we also have to liberate our minds as well. Mm-hmm. We have to make our minds free of the restrictions that are there to be able to liberate society.
Yep. That's where we have to start.
Yes. So, Angelica, tell us about the story you have for us today.
All right. So both stories I actually got from Dark History with Bailey Sarian. So I've talked about her before. She has a podcast where she literally just talks about things that she is just randomly thinking. And she's
I can't hear you.
Something where like she's randomly thinking about something and then she'll Google it and like, you know, she'll go down this rabbit hole and she's like, oh my God, I had no idea.
So like she'll do commentary while she's going down the rabbit hole.
No, so like she gets all this research and then she puts it together for an episode. But she'll tell you her process. Like, yeah, I was just eating there, or I was just watching a movie, I was just watching a movie, eating popcorn. And I thought to myself, like, oh, what's the history on popcorn? And then she'll Google it. And it turns out
it's got this crazy history.
Yeah,
or something.
like the Mayans would sacrifice virgins for the crops to,
whoa.
Exactly. So just
we'll have
stuff
to go
like
back.
that.
We're going to circle back on that one.
So I forget why she was thinking about this, like what led to this, but I thought it was very interesting. We are going to talk about Henrietta Lacks, and I don't want to botch what it is, so I'll just get right into it. I'll just talk about it. Yeah. This is from Medical News Today, and the article is called "The Stolen Cells of Henrietta Lacks and Their Ongoing Contribution to Science."
And so, because of Black History, Henrietta Lacks is a Black woman.
Was
a Black woman.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. And she's super, super important, and let me tell you why. In the past century, Henrietta Lacks has arguably done more to advance medicine than any other person. She played a material role in the development of polio vaccines, cancer treatments, HPV vaccines, and mapping the human genome. This young Black woman died from cervical cancer in 1951. It was cells taken during her cancer treatment without her permission. Need I say? It's not on here, but you'll soon find out. It was cells taken during her cancer treatment that became one of the most powerful research tools ever. But she did not know about or give permission for their retrieval. What can we learn from such wrongs committed in the name of science? Okay. So in January 1951, a few months after giving birth to her fifth child, Henrietta Lacks, a 30-year-old Black woman, became concerned about a lump on her cervix. This and unexplained vaginal bleeding led her to seek medical attention. She went to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, the only hospital in the area that would provide treatment to Black people at the time. Doctors there diagnosed a particularly aggressive form of cervical cancer. She did not tell her husband or family, informing them only that she had to go to the doctor for medicine. The standard treatment at the time was radium therapy. During her first treatment under sedation, the surgeon took a tissue sample from her tumor. He passed this on to the head of tissue culture research at Johns Hopkins, Dr. George Otto Gay. So a biopsy of her cervical cells was extracted to diagnose her cervical cancer. The original doctor did not keep her sample for his own research, but immediately shared it broadly with the larger scientific community. In 1951, the informed consent process as we know now did not exist to protect patient privacy rights or govern scientific and clinical research. Taking cell samples for research was routine practice at the time, and doctors rarely asked patients for consent. I mean, yeah, before there was all that privacy stuff, I get it.
Yeah.
As a result, most patients were, like Henrietta, completely unaware of what would happen to their cells. The cells that doctors took from Henrietta's tumor were placed in a culture medium labeled HELA to identify them. So HE for Henrietta and Lacks LA. The research expected that, like most cell samples, they would multiply a few times then die. After her first treatment, doctors discharged Henrietta from the hospital and she went back to work in the tobacco fields, oblivious to the fact that doctors had taken her cells for research purposes. In the lab, the HELA cells not only remained alive, but multiplied at an astonishing rate.
She had hella cells.
She had hella cells. Yes. Wow.
I was just waiting to make that joke.
She had hella cells. Yeah.
Yeah.
They call them immortal cells.
Wow.
Yeah.
Truly hella.
And she's the only person to ever have these cells recorded ever.
Wow.
In the history of ever. She's the only person.
Wow.
Dr. Gay. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's not right. I'm sorry.
That's unfortunate is what it is.
Dr. Gay informed colleagues that his lab had grown the first immortal cell line and shared samples of HeLa cells with them. Sorry, HeLa cells with them. Mm-hmm. What was done to her, the reuse of her information, the attaching of her name to the cells that HeLa cells are named after her, that's a massive violation of her privacy. All of these practices are of a bygone era where consent and privacy were just not taken as seriously or even thought of at all. Dr. Sean Vyas said, he's from Michigan State University. This is just a quote. Although Henrietta's initial treatment led to the tumor shrinking, by September, her cancer had spread to many of her internal organs. Henrietta Lacks died, aged 31, on October 4th, 1951, unaware that she had unwittingly left behind an extraordinary legacy.
Wow, she didn't even know.
She had no idea. And I don't know if this article will talk about it, but like imagine being her kids and finding this out.
Yeah.
Like your mom basically helped like with all of this medical research.
Yeah.
And what do they get?
What did she get?
Some 70 years on, the cell line from the original HeLa cells is still proliferating. So it's still going on. In that time, more than 11,000 research publications have involved HeLa cells. In 1953, two researchers from Tuskegee University cultured HeLa cells and mass-produced them for the use throughout the United States in the development of the first successful polio vaccine.
Wow.
Later, thanks to Henrietta Lacks. Later in the 1950s, researchers used the cells to investigate the effects of X-rays and to develop a method, which still used today, of testing whether cells are cancerous. Cells from the HeLa line have also been sent into space, used to investigate the effects of space travel and radiation on human cells, used to determine how salmonella causes infections, to investigate blood disorders, to advance understanding of HIV, and in unraveling the secrets of the human genome.
Wow. That's
incredible.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
That is Black history, and that is American history.
That is American history.
Mm-hmm.
That is like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's impacted so much. But do you hear about it in schools?
Nope. And that is so amazing, but her immortal cells probably means that she would have never survived that cancer because they were able to multiply so quickly and would never die. Who knows? Like, have they done research on how to kill them? They've used it so much for reproducing them, but have they done research on how to kill those cells?
Good question. Most pertinently, mm-hmm. given that Henrietta Lacks died from cervical cancer, HeLa cells were vital in discovering how HPV causes cervical cancer and the development of the vaccine against HPV. Huge shout out. Mm. It is particularly troubling that, as Dr. Vyas stated, quote, in the U.S., Black women have especially poor outcomes with cervical cancer because that's why she went to the hospital in the first place. They're seeing the doctor, but they're not getting treated in a timely way. Amen. I'm trying to see what else I should write in here. Or I should say.
What should I write in this article I'm reading?
So what made HeLa cells unique? Unlike almost all other cell samples, HeLa cells continue to replicate in cell culture, and the line has survived for more than 70 years. So what was it about these cancer cells that made them so powerful? Although scientists do not fully understand what gives HeLa cells their unique properties, research has shown that there are 3 ways in which HeLa cells are different from normal human cells. HeLa cells have 76 to 80 chromosomes, whereas normal human cells have 46. This is a result of infection with HPV, which causes errors in the genome to accumulate as uncontrolled division occurs. HeLa cells grow even faster than most cancer cells, so if they contaminate other cell cultures, they overtake them. Researchers attribute this to the fact that Henrietta Lacks also had syphilis, which weakens the immune system and allows cancers to grow aggressively. HeLa cells can divide an infinite number of times as their telomeres regrow after each division. In normal cells, telomeres decreases at each division. You said it like
it was a Spanish word.
Telomeres decrease at each division, leading to cells aging and dying. And these never would.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason, HeLa cells have proved to be a vital tool in biomedical research.
Oh, biochemical. Oh, my God.
Henrietta Lacks' cell played a material role in work that led to 3 Nobel Prizes and many other scientific discoveries, but they were used and shared without consent from her or from any member of her family. At the time, permission was neither required nor sought for cells to be used for research. This was a normal procedure in the 1950s, as Dr. Valles pointed out. Quote, there was non-consensual research happening everywhere because consent didn't really matter. But it always happens to be the case that people being burdened by this, people being taken advantage of, disproportionately end up being Black Americans. Something happens and it works for this population. The billion-dollar industry tied to the immortal HeLa cell line is yet another example of how the U.S. has exploited and profited off the bodies of Black people. Once informed consent processes established that obtaining and researching the HeLa cells was unethical because it violated human rights, privacy, and bodily autonomy, its continued use represented a blatant disregard for Henrietta's humanity, let alone scientific integrity and ethical conduct of research, says Dr. Miranda Ward. How did the case of Henrietta Lacks come to light? For around 25 years, researchers used HeLa cells without any acknowledgement of where they had originated. Then in 1976, she died in 52.
Wow. 24 years later. 24.
Then in 1976, a reporter, Michael Rogers, uncovered the origin of the name HeLa, revealing in Rolling Stone magazine that the cells were from Henrietta Lacks. So they just took her cells, named it after her.
Yeah.
But never told the story.
Never told the story to anyone, not even in the research community.
She just became like a patient that just went off and passed away. And
yeah.
No, she is these cells.
She's still living.
Literally.
Yeah.
And it was only then, long after her cells had been shared around the world and played a part in many medical breakthroughs, that her family became aware of what had happened. Oh my God, I would be so
irate.
Baffled. Yeah. Some years later, Rebecca Skloot, an investigative journalist, picked up the story. She contacted Henrietta's family, who were at first reluctant to talk to her. Eventually, she persuaded Henrietta's youngest daughter, Deborah, to provide personal insight into her mother's story. Skloot's book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, was published in 2010 and made into a film in 2017. Ooh, I didn't know that. I knew about the book, but I didn't know about the film. Following the publication of her book, Rebecca Skloot established the Henrietta Lacks Foundation. Yes. With the purpose of helping individuals who have made important contributions to scientific research without personally benefiting from those contributions, particularly those used in research without their knowledge or consent. And another thing that was pointed out earlier, which I don't know if you guys caught that, but like Black women are so disproportionately diagnosed, medically helped. And here we have a Black woman who contributed to the HPV vaccine. And this is something that Black women are dying from disproportionately. Okay. Several of Henrietta Lacks' descendants have been helped by the foundation, one small step, perhaps, in making reparation for the wrong done to Henrietta Lacks. Do you want to read about the lawsuit?
You can.
Okay. On July 31st, 2023, on what would have been the day before Lax's 103rd birthday, a lawsuit nearly 2 years in the making was settled between Lax's descendants and the biotech company Thermo Fisher Scientific. The family had accused Thermo Fisher Scientific of profiting from HELA cells without their approval and without receiving any payments, which was a byproduct of the racially unjust medical system, the lawsuit stated. The details of the terms were not made available to the public, but both parties were reportedly pleased that they were able to resolve the matter outside of the court. So
they settled.
Yeah, but could you imagine like being the scientist to like figure this out and not thinking like, oh my God, like this is going to change so many lives.
Not only that, but like once I figured out that it was going to change lives, I would want to personally thank the
That's
person
what I was
the
gonna
cells.
say.
Oh, sorry.
Literally, I was like, contact the family. Like,
yeah, sorry. I didn't know that's where you were going.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I want to look her in the eyes and say thank you for your contribution, and you're going to change some. I would want her to know that she's changing lives.
But see, that's the thing. Like doctors back then, I mean, they wouldn't even ask you for consent. There's no way they would have been like, he would have been like, hey, guess what your cells did.
Yeah, they don't want. Well, and they don't want a black woman to have,
a right.
No, damn, I lost the train of thought. To get credit. To get credit for changing lives.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
So is consent enough? In the U.S., the common rule instigated in 1981 and updated since sets out ethical guidelines for biomedical and behavioral research involving humans. Among other issues, it covers compliance, record keeping, and most importantly, informed consent.
Earlier you said Nobel Prize instead of Nobel Prize.
Well, why is it not spelled Nobel?
It is.
Fuck. Wait, really? Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
It's Nobel.
Oh. Well, you know. Blah.
I'm just kidding.
Just kidding. Okay. This is kind of what I said. Dr. Sean Vaya said Henrietta Lacks was taken advantage of, and the fruits of her body were taken without her knowledge and without her consent. And even after all these decades of improvements of the American medical system and the system worldwide, somehow still people who are Black Americans like Henrietta Lacks are still disadvantaged.
Yep.
This is just one case that has damaged trust in medical science among Black, American Indian, and people of color in general in the U.S.
That part. It
came in the midst of the Tuskegee syphilis study where between 1932 and 1972, doctors denied treatment to Black men with syphilis even after penicillin was identified as the effective cure so that they could study the course of the disease. More recently, during the COVID pandemic in both the U.S. and the United Kingdom, people of color were at far greater risk of mortality than white people in the U.K. Than white people, period. In the U.K., in the UK, Black African American were 3.7 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than white men. And according to the CDC, Black and African American, American Indian, or Alaskan Native, and Hispanic or Latino individuals were around twice as likely to die from COVID-19 than white people. Currently, most research is carried out in white, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic people.
Damn, that was a lot of adjectives.
Scientists have acknowledged that such data are not representative and that research must include data from diverse populations.
Mm-hmm.
Henrietta Lacks was taken advantage of because perhaps doctors thought she did not matter. Her cells were just tools for research. We might hope that such attitudes are a thing of the past, but inequality still exists. Dr. Ward commented, medical and scientific research needs to first understand what equity is before they can apply an equity lens to their research. Equity has become a buzz term for some, resulting in it being used erroneously and interchangeably with concepts of diversity and inclusion. Henrietta Lacks became known because of the wrong done to her in the name of science. Perhaps her most lasting legacy will be to raise awareness of the inequities in health provision and research and lead the way into a fairer, more inclusive healthcare system.
You know, I wonder what made the doctor hand her cells over to research in the first place.
Because he put them under a microscope, left, came back the next day, they had multiplied. He was expecting them to be dead.
Before that, the doctor that took the cells from her, why did he send them off to research instead of just to the lab?
Because they were cancerous cells.
So, like, all cancerous cells go to research? Interesting. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. They take a sample.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about Black History Month or any month, because this is American history, or whenever you're, getting a pap smear, women, you think of Henrietta Lacks.
Yep.
Or cancer treatments in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so privilege. This came up for me because when the CEO of Schmoo-Minded Schmelfcare was shot, we were talking about it at work, and I said something.
You guys were talking about it at work?
I know. It was
scandalous.
I don't remember who brought it up, but we were like walking on eggshells talking about it. Because I think there's a whole group of people who are like, oh my God, he's a murderer, blah, blah, blah. But then there's a whole group of people who have been affected by the healthcare system who are like, I ain't got really nothing to say about that.
It's unfortunate because a life was taken. But I think the second group of people are more of like, okay, but who was this person? And what did he contribute to society or not contribute?
So, what
is murder wrong? Of course.
But there's a lot more to this story.
It's deeper than that.
And there's irony to this story, which is what I said at work. I said, I was pointing out the irony in the situation because had this man survived his shooting, he would not have to worry about how he was going to pay his medical bills for going to the hospital. And the people who have the insurance of the company that he runs are often worried about how they're going to pay their medical bills because his insurance company is denying their claims. Not only are they worried about how they're going to pay their medical bills, but a lot of them are worried about how they're going to survive. Because if you deny their claims and they can't afford the treatment, then they can't get the treatment and they're going to die. Or whatever the situation may be. So I said something like that, was pointing out the irony. And I was like, he's very privileged to not have to worry about medical bills and insurance and things like that. And
what if his claim got denied? I know it wouldn't, but imagine.
Sorry, ironic.
To not talk
irony, right? Irony is something that we should actually talk about in real life. Like irony is a concept for a reason. So anyway, I say that. One of our pharmacists, he says, privileged. I'm sure he worked his whole life to be where he's at, and he worked his whole life to be successful, and he worked really hard to be successful, and blah 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 blah. And in the moment, I said something like, I'm not talking about money privilege. I'm talking about he didn't have to worry about X, Y, and Z, where there's other millions of people who do have to worry about that. And I didn't go further into it, but I feel like I should have. Did he drop it? He did drop it. He wasn't upset either. He just made the comment, and I was like, I said that or whatever, and then we just kind of dropped it after that. But I feel like I should have educated him more.
I don't look this something up. Go ahead.
And that's what spurred this conversation. So the first thing I have is the definition of privilege. The definition of privilege, are you listening? Privilege is unearned, sustained benefits and advantages that stem from membership in a dominant social group, including but not limited to race, class, gender, sexuality, and ability. Privilege is unearned. So when my coworker said to me, "Oh, he's worked so hard," and that's a lot of the conversation in when we talk about privilege in politics, a lot of the conversation on the other side is, well, they worked hard for what they had. And let me be clear. Privilege is not inherently bad. It's not inherently bad for you to have privilege. Yeah. It's what you do with it.
I was just telling Kelsey earlier, like, this is kind of like a swing out of left wing. I don't know how you phrase.
You and your phrases lately.
Like, I was telling her, I had no idea that abortion had been illegal since 2023 in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And why did I not know that? Because I had the privilege of not having to know that.
Mm-hmm. Because you haven't had to use that resource. Yeah. So, So when the argument is, they worked hard. Yeah. Privilege is something you have that you did not get from working hard. So let's just get that clear from the beginning.
Like the race you were born.
Yeah.
Like the
sexuality you were born.
Crap.
The gender you were born. The ability you were born.
Wait. Socioeconomic status.
Class.
Jesus Christ.
Class.
Yes, class.
It was in the definition. Yeah.
Yes.
Class. Yeah. So.
I was in the definition. Shit.
Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna read the definition. Are you listening?
I was, but I don't know. I didn't clock it.
Oh, that's the wrong video. Oh, that's the wrong video too.
Which, of course, I'm sure he worked hard. He got a bachelor's degree. He, moved up the ladder. Yep. Yeah, that's cool. But, like, you're missing the point of what she's saying.
The point is that he had privilege that other people didn't, and he didn't use that privilege for good. That, like I said a second ago, privilege is not inherently bad. It's something that you are either born with or not.
Right.
It's something that you have that you cannot control that you have. So if I had a privilege that I didn't want, I can't remove it.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to that again. Privilege is unearned, but it's also something that you can't take away either. Like, you can't take away the privilege I get from having white skin. You can't take away the privilege I have from living in the United States. I mean, I guess you could move me to another country, but I would still have the privilege of being a citizen of the United States and being able to go back there.
Oh my God, I just remembered something.
Go ahead.
My coworker, who is white, she was telling me about how, like, her license had expired and she was freaking out because she was like, oh my God, like, what if they deport me? And I'm like, where would they even deport you to? And I didn't want to go into that, so I made it into a joke. And I'm like, oh, I guess you get to choose since you're from here. So, like,
she really thought they would deport her? Or is she making a joke?
Thing to say, especially in today's class.
Do you think she was making a joke, or do you think she really thought that? I really hope she didn't really think that.
Because
then
I think she was
we're worse off than we think.
I think she was trying to make a joke. But I think her freaking out was legit. Mm-hmm. I think the next part was a joke. And I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah, all right then.
What? To me, a first degree, a first generation Mexican American. Anyway.
So I have this video pulled up. I watched 2 videos on YouTube that made some great points that I really wanted to include in this episode. So I'm just going to be reading from the transcript from the video. So one of the first things they say is, privilege is the unearned advantage that we get from being a part of a dominant group whose needs have traditionally been prioritized.
A dominant group that has been...
Whose needs have been prioritized.
Whose needs have been historically prioritized. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Not you worked hard for your money. This is not the same thing. Please understand that. We can experience privilege because our gender, race, sexual orientation, ability, class, or other identities. Many of us experience a combination of privilege and disadvantages. For example, white women have privilege because of their race, but are at disadvantage because of their gender.
Good example.
Yeah.
Good example.
The privileges we have or don't have can have a big impact on our experiences at work, for example. People without disabilities can usually assume that the software their company uses will work for them, but people with disabilities often have to ask whether a tool is accessible, and if it isn't, they have to ask for an alternative or consider they have to ask for an alternative. Consider religious holidays. So I won't read this one because I just remember what they said, but they were talking about how religious holidays like Christmas are federally observed. So a lot of jobs that have holidays off, the holidays that are off are Christian holidays.
Yep.
But people who are Muslim or people who are Jewish, they have to use their PTO to take off for their religious holidays. Oh. So they're at a disadvantage since they have to use more PTO to take off holidays that other people get off automatically.
Oh my God. I didn't even have to think about that because I had the privilege of not
I have the privilege of not having to know that, yeah.
I would really hope that like my company specifically, if that were the case, that they were allowing them those days off.
Yeah.
Without using their PTO.
Actually, what my company just switched to was our holidays being added to our PTO pool. So,
but still, that's a certain number.
Yes, that is a certain number. And so basically they did it so that we could use them as floating holidays. And that came up when Juneteenth was marked as a federal holiday. At the time, we didn't have any Black employees, but they wanted to be able to make it accessible for Black employees to be able to use that whatever floating holiday they wanted to take PTO off for that day.
Also, how beautiful that your company did that despite
not having any Black employees.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So then when you do have a Black employee and this is already established,
yes,
versus being the what's it called, like the person that initiates it, like why should the burden be on that person to start this?
Absolutely. I will clarify, I work at a small business. We have 18 employees. We have had many Black employees before. At this point in time when Juneteenth became a federal holiday, we just so happen to not have any. We do currently have a Black employee, so that's where we're at in the timeline, in case you were wondering.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you know, when it became federally recognized, that you guys did too.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
At least there's that.
At least there's that. Okay. Corporate America. For every 100 men who are hired into manager level positions, only 72 women are hired. This isn't because men are more qualified. Instead, it's largely because men benefit from unearned advantages in the hiring process. And by unearned advantages, we mean bias, right? What?
I'm thinking about something else.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm like, what? Listening. I thought you were going to disagree. That's why I thought.
No, I'm. No. When I do that, my brain's like, it's like
thinking about something else.
Yeah, but it's correlating it to that.
Yes, I understand. Side quest.
Yeah, side quest.
more. Well, let me find the beginning of the sentence here. In the hiring process, one study showed that replacing a woman's name with a man's name on the exact same resume increased the odds of being hired by more than 60%. Similar biases affect people of color, LGBTQ people, and people with other traditionally marginalized identities. In another study, replacing a stereotypically Black sounding name with a stereotypically white sounding name on the candidate's resume resulted in 50 more callbacks, the equivalent of adding 8 years of work experience. Wait. Yeah, this doesn't end the sentences, so I have to like stop where the sentence ends. I wanted to make a comment on that because I think, and I've thought this for a long time, that Travis has an advantage when he applies for jobs because he has a stereotypically white name. If he went by his middle name, which is Tyree, he probably would not get as many callbacks as he does. So I just wanted to mention that I've thought that for a long time, and it's proven in statistics. Yeah. They've done experiments on it.
Yeah. Do you remember Drew and her sister? Dayson, my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Drew and Dayson talking about how, well, specifically more Drew, that her mom gave her a more boy-sounding name because of that.
It was in her book.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said that her mom.
Sorry, she talked about it also on the podcast, and I just started their podcast.
I was like running it together.
Wait. Okay, so the reason why my brain went is because when you said unearned, what'd you call it? Unearned advantages?
Advantages, yes.
Okay, sorry, my brain went to. I recently learned that married men make more money than married women. And that's where I thought you were going with it, that they're able to work longer hours, stay late, work more to get these higher positions. And I thought that's kind of where you were going.
Oh.
Because they were males.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, absolutely. It's like, how do we work that? How do we fix that? Because I mean, at an interview, you're gonna get their names, you're gonna get their resume, and you're gonna potentially have bias, unfortunately, and you're gonna create, you know what I mean, like
create like a story in your head of what
before meeting the person. So how do we get past that? Do you just say, hey, I have an interview for you at 3:00, know nothing about them, and then you just
or now with the birth of AI, use AI to filter through
like the qualifications you're looking for, and if this person just it's not even worth.
Right.
But even then, like even after, I mean, people still...
Well, so talking about qualifications, so even if we left names off of resumes, right? If you didn't know their name until you met them in person, another thing that this video mentioned was even people who somehow identified themselves as a part of the LGBTQ community, like if they said they're a part of an advocacy group or something on their resume, then they would get less callbacks as well. So even without the name, there are other ways to draw bias. If the person who's applying for a job went to an HBCU, that would imply that they're black, most likely black. Even if you leave names off the resume, there's still room for more bias. So yeah, how do you fix that?
The racist people will eventually die off.
I fucking hope so. I've been praying for it.
And there'll just be less and less of their children, hopefully, like, opening up their eyes and not being
I hope so, but, like, there are people our age today that are racist and who are teaching their children to be racist.
That's so sad.
So, it's so important to understand how privilege shapes our experiences when we see why women, people of color, and others with traditionally marginalized identities are underrepresented. We can start to address some of the barriers that hold these groups back, but acknowledging our privilege can be really, really tough. It's uncomfortable to admit that we have an advantage we didn't necessarily earn, especially when we've still had to work hard, but when we do start to see the reality of our own privilege.
I also want to say that I have felt privilege in the fact of like being born in the United States when I have family members or friends who weren't. And I feel like I didn't earn that, but I have the opportunities to go to college and to buy a house and to have a driver's license and to do all these things that I did not. I mean, yes, I earned my bachelor's degree, but I didn't earn the right to do that.
You still had the privilege of having access to getting your bachelor's degree.
Yeah, exactly. So like you said, recognizing your own privilege. That's where it starts.
Yes. And understanding where to use it.
Yeah. And I understand that. So when I come across someone who was not born in the United States, I can talk without sounding like a fucking douche.
Yeah. Advocate for them as well.
And some empathize.
I think... What was that word?
Empathize.
Sorry, I had to circle back.
I don't know. This has been my whole life. Okay.
Earlier today, you were trying to say
joke.
Hemorrhoid joke, and you said it wrong the first time, and I gave you a look, but we passed by it. You were like hemorrhoid jerk or something like that.
No, the J was ja. Oh, hemorrhoid joke, and then joke. Anyway,
the first time we sped past it and I just gave you a look and then you said it again. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
I don't do it on purpose.
What was I saying? Oh, wait. Almost there. What were you just talking about?
I can understand my own privilege and
so a lot of this came up in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was going, because a lot of white women, and maybe even white men, white men, were starting to understand how they can use their privilege. So when I say use your privilege, what I mean is advocate for minorities and for the marginalized groups, and use what privilege you do have, even if you are also somewhat marginalized. Use what privilege you do have to advocate for them, to stand up for them in public when someone's being discriminatory of them. I think there were stories in 2020 where, there are people checking out at the grocery store and a black woman is being discriminated against. Obviously, it's very obvious. And, maybe the white woman behind her says something and gets it shut down to the point where they're not going to refuse her groceries or They're not going to call the police or whatever the situation may be. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that Black women need us to
save them,
be their heroes. Right. That's not the case. But in situations where you can help and you do have the privilege to be able to help, you should help. The last part of this video just says, we can also better understand the experiences of people with less privilege, and we can start to find ways to use our privilege to support and advocate for others. In other words, we can become allies. Okay, so the next video was a social experiment. They had a group of people, all walks of life, come to this social experiment that they put on video. So it's like a studio or whatever. And there are lines on the floor. And at first they're standing in a line, like a cross, like a horizontal line, and they're all holding hands. And the beginning of the video.
I love social experiments.
Me too. Especially stuff like this. The beginning of the video. She says, hold on. Oh, she doesn't explain it in the beginning of the video.
In the beginning.
Okay, so basically she's going to ask them questions. They're going to start on the same line in the middle. She's going to start asking them questions about their life and what they've experienced. And if they're in the back. Sorry, they're in the back. And if they benefited from one of the questions that she asks, they take a step forward. And at the end, they look back and they see people, back at the beginning or just a few steps ahead when they're 20 steps ahead. And so that represents in a physical way the people who have had privilege. Now, the questions I'm about to read from this video are parts of privilege you would have never thought of. I thought were very interesting.
Ooh, you and I should do this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And we're back.
We're back. All right, sorry. We're back. Sorry, the camera died.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So Angelica's going to write down on a piece of paper our names and some lines. And then as I ask these, she's going to act like she's moving us up and down on the lines.
So we're both on this line, and then I'll just move it.
Move it up one at a time. Okay. All right, here we go. She's going to move us back because we're in the beginning. Yeah. Okay. If your parents had to work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back.
You mean forward?
If your parents had to work nights and weekends, take one step back. We're going backwards.
Right, we're facing that way. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I don't think...
She just realized she's not holding her microphone.
My parents... Well, my dad worked overtime, but I don't think it was ever nights or weekends. So I can't really, say...
Okay. I think it's the disadvantage of your parents having to work so much that they miss out on things on nights and weekends. And the privilege would be that your parents had a 9-to-5 job where they didn't have to work overtime or whatever. Yeah. My dad worked overtime when I was a kid as well, but when I was a baby. So I'm going to say no on this one. I'm not going to move back.
Me too. I'm not going to.
Okay. If you can show affection to your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. Yes. So did they have them in the middle?
Wait, what was how was the first question phrased?
It says, if your family had to work overtime, take one step back. And now it says, if you can show affection, so it's supposed to be the middle. So sorry. We're both in the same position until we answer this question. So just start over. My God. So sorry, guys. I should have just watched the video again. I've never in my life, restarted something 3 times? Nobody can hear you anyway. Okay. Because you're not holding your microphone.
Okay, so we both take a step forward.
Yes. No, not me. You don't? Because I'm in an interracial relationship.
You don't feel like you can?
No. So sometimes I can't, depending on where we are. Yeah.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah. I think that question was more geared towards the LGBTQ community, gays. But I mean, also it applies to people in interracial relationships because it's still something that's an issue.
Wow. So I take a step forward and you don't.
Correct. Bet you didn't think that was going to happen, did you?
I didn't.
Pick your microphone back up.
I didn't.
If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. I will be taking a step back.
Wait, so I was here, so now I go back.
This is forward and this is back.
No, forward to me because they're facing me.
But like imagine us, these are two people in a warehouse. And this is the front of the room and this is the back of the room.
Oh, I imagine the front being over here.
Whatever works for you. Just do it correctly.
Yeah, I know. Front, back.
And so you've already taken a step forward, right?
Yeah, I took a step forward.
Okay, so now you need to go back. So you're back on the line.
Now I'm here.
Okay.
And you take a step back, so you're
I am taking a step back. Did you take a step back for the first question too?
You said no, you were a baby.
Okay.
So you're not going to count it.
Right, but for the interracial relationship. You took a step back for that?
Oh
no, it said take a step forward, so I was staying where I was at. Got
That's
it.
what it was.
God, this is confusing.
That's a lot easier. Okay.
Okay.
And now I have to make sure I know which, like, you know what I mean? Go ahead. Go ahead. There's got to be an easier way.
We can use our bodies.
Okay, hang on. I know now.
Oh God.
I gotta do two. I gotta do two of them.
If you have ever been diagnosed of having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back.
Does OCD and anxiety count?
Yes.
Okay. Take one foot back. One step
to
back.
see the cha-cha slide. Yes, one step back.
Okay.
I'm going to say no to that one. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back. I'll be taking a step back, please. If you get time off for your religious holidays, take one step forward. Yep. If you came from a supportive family environment.
For the most part.
Take one step forward. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were saying no. I'm sorry.
I came from, don't currently have one. If you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, take one step forward. Yes, forward.
It's hard because it's hard to face the privileges you have. Like, could you? Yes. But the fear of hospitals, the anxiety of it, the monetary of it, that's what is holding you back.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only that, but I currently do not have medical insurance for certain reasons. I won't go into all that right now. So it would be hard, yes, but I do have access to it. I do have some sort of medical benefit at my job. So I do have access to a doctor. If you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, take one step forward. I'm going to go back on that one.
You don't have to move back. Just move forward.
Yes, you're right. If you took out loans for your education, one step back. Both of us did. If you were more than 50, if you had more than 50 books in your house right now. What? I don't understand that. Let's skip that one. That was it. That was all the questions.
What?
Yep.
That's it?
Well, it was a pretty short video. Almost identical.
We ended at the same spot.
Yep. I would say that's pretty true to our lives right now.
Yeah. What was the first thing? Can show PDA without the fear of.
Yep.
Wow.
So, these were ones you don't normally think about, like being able to show PDA in public. A lot of people don't think about that because they have the privilege of not being able to think about that, or being embarrassed about your clothes or your house when you were younger. That's something that would actually hold you back in your education and your social life and things like that when you're a kid. So, that holds you back.
I remember I got made fun of for these shoes that I love.
I thought you meant these shoes that you're wearing right now.
No. Like we went shopping probably at Kmart or something, and I wasn't aware of brands, but there were like these black shoes with like blue lining, and I love them. And I wore them to school and I got bullied for them, and I'm like, I never wanted to wear those shoes again.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
They were brand new. My mom was like, why are you wearing them? Like, because
you made fun of.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine the pain of a parent hearing your child say that they're being made fun of. I just can't think about it right now. Okay, so I asked Gemini to give me some facts about privilege.
Who?
Gemini.
Who dat?
It's AI. Who's that?
Who dat?
It's Google's AI chat feature.
Interesting.
The first one says it's systemic, not individual. Privilege isn't about individual character or intent. It's embedded in social structures, institutions, and cultural norms. It's intersectional. People can hold multiple privileges and marginalized identities simultaneously. For example, a wealthy woman of color may experience gender-based discrimination, but still benefit from her economic privilege. It's often invisible to those who have it. Because privilege is the norm, those who benefit from it may not even realize it exists. It's like the water a fish swims in. It's so pervasive that it gets unnoticed. That's very interesting to correlate water that a fish swims in to privilege. Some people are swimming in dirty water that they didn't make dirty. If you're someone who is a marginalized group, their water is dirty.
Oh, I was like, where are we going with this?
Their water is dirty, or their water is so cloudy they can't see through it. You don't like that?
I'm not following. Analogy? Well, you just said water is privilege.
The water that a fish lives in is privilege. Yeah, okay, I see how it's disconnected a little bit, but it still makes sense to me.
Okay, as long as it makes sense to you, girl.
If you're not privileged, then the water that you're swimming in is not good water.
Okay, so now you're making two different analogies then.
Okay.
You're saying privilege. Privilege is like the water a fish swims in, period. Mm-hmm. And then the kind of water you're in is a different kind of privilege. So one is privilege and one is the kind of privilege.
Yes, I see what you're saying. I won't make any more metaphors.
No.
It's not about being bad or good. Having privilege doesn't mean a person is inherently racist, sexist, or otherwise prejudiced. It simply means that they have certain advantages that others don't. It's about access and opportunity. Privilege grants easier access to resources, opportunities, and social power. This can include things like better education, healthcare, housing, and job opportunities. It can be based on various social identities, which we've talked about: race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, class, ability, religion, citizenship. It's not about denying hardship. Acknowledging privilege doesn't mean denying that privileged individuals face challenges. Everyone experiences hardship. However, privilege can provide a buffer against certain types of hardship. So even if something we hear a lot when you say, well, you have privilege is, well, you don't know what I've been through in my life. And it's like, okay, two things can be true at once. You can, just like with privilege, you can have privilege and be a part of a marginalized community. You can have privilege and have gone through a lot of hard things in your life. Two things can be true at once. You can have privilege because of your white skin, but been through poverty your entire life. You still will not be discriminated against as the black person next to you will be over something that you can't change.
Or they'll be like, well, I don't see color. That's privilege.
Yeah, it's privilege.
You just proved my point.
Right. Exactly. It's about recognizing unequal systems. Understanding privilege is crucial for dismantling systems of oppression and working towards a more equitable society. It can cause unconscious bias. Those who have privilege can have unconscious bias that affect how they interact with those who do not have the same privileges. Acknowledging privilege is the first step. One of the most important things a person can do is acknowledge their own privileges and work to understand how those privileges affect the world around them. Let's do misunderstandings.
I'm going to eat this chocolate while you do that.
Go ahead. All right. Some misunderstandings about privilege. The concept of privilege is often met with resistance and misunderstanding. Here's a breakdown of the common misconceptions. Privilege means my life hasn't been hard. This is a major misunderstanding. Everyone faces challenges. Privilege doesn't negate individual struggles. It simply means certain obstacles are less likely to rise or are easier to overcome due to one's social identity. And remember, social identity meant all the things that we listed off. Race, gender, class, sexual orientation, gender identity, blah, 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 blah. If I acknowledge my privilege, I'm calling myself a bad person. Acknowledging privilege is not about personal guilt or blame. It's about recognizing the systemic advantages that exist, regardless of individual intent. It's about recognizing an uneven playing field. The next one is, privilege is about being privileged or wealthy. What are we going to say?
An uneven playing field.
Mm-hmm. Remind me to come back to an uneven playing field and generational wealth.
I would love for you to talk about that, actually.
Okay. Good. I'm gonna.
You better, bitch.
Privilege is about being privileged or wealthy, is the misconception. While socioeconomic privilege is a factor, privilege extends beyond wealth. It encompasses advantages based on race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, and other social identities. Someone can be economically disadvantaged but still hold racial or gender privilege. So there can be a billionaire who has black skin, who is gay, who came from the projects. I mean, this person still has the privilege of a socioeconomic class, but still fits in these marginalized groups. Talking about privilege creates division. While discussions about privilege can be uncomfortable, they are essential for creating a more just society. Ignoring systemic inequalities perpetuates them. Open dialogue is necessary for understanding and dismantling these systems. I would venture to say that privilege creates division when the people who are talking about privilege creates division. The people who are talking about privilege, one side of them doesn't understand what privilege actually means. That will create division. Because there's one side of the group trying to tell you what it means and why it's harmful, and another side of the group that's totally misunderstanding it. That thinks it's money, what you worked for your whole life. Privilege isn't just reverse racism / sexism. Privilege is rooted in historical and systemic power imbalances. It's not about isolated incidents of prejudice. Systems of privilege are built into the very fabric of society. Therefore, it is not possible to have reverse, quote, systems of privilege.
Wait, I need you to say that again.
Privilege is rooted in historical and systemic power imbalances. It's not about isolated incidents of prejudice. Systems of privilege are built into the fabric of society. Therefore, it is not possible to have reverse systems of privilege. The next misconception is, if I worked hard, everyone else can too.
Oh my God.
While hard work is important, it doesn't operate in a vacuum. Privilege provides advantages that make it easier to succeed. Access to resources, opportunities, and social networks can significantly impact outcomes. That was a nice way to say it.
Yeah. I also hate when it's like, well, I came from a poor family and I did it. I'm a success story. It's like, you're the exception, not the rule.
Or not even the exception. You had privilege. And because you had privilege, you had opportunities, you had resources, you had places to go where people would not turn you away. So on and so forth. Even if you came from a poor family, if you have white skin, if you are straight, if you, whatever the situation may be, you still have privileges.
Yeah.
And congratulations for making it out of where you came from. That is amazing. And you have privilege. Both things can be true at once.
Man, it's almost like the time I told my coworker that she was ignorant. She's like, I'm not ignorant. I'm like, it's not a bad thing.
No.
Just means you don't know this.
Yes.
And you don't know.
And you know what? I'm so tired. I am so tired. And I know other people are tired of having to define simple terms like privilege to people who just plain old don't understand it.
And don't want to. They don't want to
change. They don't want to understand. They don't want to change their stance. So it doesn't matter if they understand it.
Right. Yep.
Last one I have is misconception. That was in the past. Privilege does not exist anymore. While overt acts of discrimination have decreased in some areas, the effects of historical systems of privilege still exist. These systems have created generational advantages for some and generational disadvantages for others. We're going to go back to generational wealth.
Uneven playing field.
Okay. I typed it wrong. Hold on. I turn my microphone around. Generational wealth refers to assets passed down from one generation to the next, creating a lasting financial legacy for families. It's more than just money. It's about accumulation of resources. Let me start that over. It's more than just money. Generational wealth is more than just money. It's about the accumulation of resources, knowledge, and opportunities that provide future generations with significant advantages. Here's a closer look. Financial assets, inherited investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, obviously. Next one, family business. Okay, passing down family businesses. That's generational wealth. Trust funds and life insurance payouts. All of that financial, obviously. Real assets like family homes and properties, land and natural resources, and valuable possessions, art, antiques, blah, blah, blah. Man, do I wish I was the right kind of white to have land and natural resources.
The right kind of white.
Man. Human capital, educational opportunities and access to quality schooling, social networks and connections, financial literacy and business acumen, values and work ethic. Cultural capital, knowledge of social norms and etiquette, access to exclusive social circles, and reputation and family name. How generational wealth works. Accumulation over time. Wealth is built in incrementally through savings, investments, and business ventures. Transfer of assets. Assets are passed down through wills, trusts, and other legal mechanisms. Investments in future generations. Wealth is used to fund education, start businesses, and provide financial security. Each generation benefits from the resources and opportunities accumulated by previous generations. Hold on one second. Okay. The concept of generational wealth highlights a stark reality regarding the economic disparities faced by Black Americans. Historical and ongoing systemic barriers have created an uneven playing field, significantly hindering the ability of Black families to accumulate and pass down wealth. Here's how the factors intertwine. First one, slavery. Centuries of unpaid labor denied Black individuals the opportunity to accumulate any form of wealth. Jim Crow laws. Discriminatory laws restricted access to education, employment, and housing, limiting economic opportunities. Redlining. Government-sanctioned practices. This was not just people being biased. This was the government who created this. Prevented Black families from obtaining mortgages and buying homes in certain neighborhoods, denying them a crucial avenue for wealth accumulation.
That is crazy.
So then those families had to go and live in places where they may be subject to more violence. They may be subject to more poverty, in which case it's harder to get out.
What's that term? Food deserts?
Mm-hmm. Food deserts, yep.
Have to travel farther for their food.
Yep.
Or better quality of food.
Yep, absolutely.
Schools with maybe
better opportunities, better resources.
Less teachers.
Yep. Discrimination in lending. Even after legal segregation ended, Black individuals continued to face discrimination in lending practices, making it harder to secure loans for homes and businesses. The ongoing challenges. Wage gap. Black workers are often earn less than their white counterparts, limiting their ability to save and invest. Homeownership disparities. The legacy of redlining and ongoing discrimination in the housing market continues to affect Black home ownership rates. Access to capital. Black entrepreneurs often face challenges in accessing capital to start and grow businesses. Educational disparities. Inequalities in education can limit access to high-paying jobs and economic opportunities. These historical and ongoing barriers have resulted in a significant wealth gap between Black and white families. Black families are less likely to inherit wealth, limiting their ability to build upon existing assets. The lack of generational wealth makes it more difficult for Black families to fund education, start businesses, purchase homes, weather financial emergencies. To address this disparity, closing the wealth gap requires addressing systemic inequalities that have persisted for generations. Policies aimed at promoting homeownership, increasing access to capital, and addressing wage disparities are crucial. Investing in education and economic opportunities in Black communities is essential. So just like we were saying in the playing field, there are a lot of white families in America who have had wealth for generations past slavery. And have you ever heard the term? I think Kendrick said it during the Super Bowl.
Thinking about Kendrick right now.
Yeah. He said 40 acres and a mule, I think it was.
40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music.
So, let me...
Yeah, they try to rate the game, but they can't. Fake influence.
40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule refers to a promise made to newly freed Black slaves in the United States after the Civil War. It was intended as a form of reparations for the centuries of unpaid labor and oppression they had endured, which is obviously not enough. This order authorized the confiscation of Confederate land along the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. The land was to be redistributed in plots of up to 40 acres to formerly enslaved families. The Union Army also began distributing surplus mules to aid in farming. The purpose was so that they could get some economic independence and a means of self-sufficiency. It was a recognition that freedom without resources is not true freedom. It was a short-lived promise, though. President Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Abraham Lincoln, overturned Sherman's order later in 1865. He ordered that the return of the confiscated land to its former Confederate owners.
What?
As a result, the vast majority of formerly enslaved people did not receive the promised land or mules. 40 acres and a mule became a symbol of the broken promises and unfulfilled hopes of Reconstruction. It represents the ongoing struggle for racial equality and economic justice in the United States. It is often brought up in conversations regarding reparations for the descendants of slaves. It is a key part of the history of Reconstruction era. Wow. If you think about that, it is often brought up in conversations regarding reparations for the descendants of slaves. They're still waiting on reparations. Reparations were promised to them, and they said, nah. So they never had a chance.
Right, never.
They never had a chance to build generational wealth, even though it was once promised to them. Because they had to keep them where they needed to keep them. Poor, hungry. Uneducated. And not succeeding.
God.
Okay, I think that's all we have for today. That was a deep dive into privilege. I hope you learned something today. I learned things today.
Yeah, I hope you learned something new and you go and spread the news.
Spread the news. Spread the word.
Spread what you learned. Talk to someone about it.
Share this episode with someone.
Hey, I just listened to the newest episode of Here Girl Podcast and this is what I learned. Wait, they talk about that kind of stuff on there?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, girlfriend. Spread the word.
Spread the word. And let us know if there's any topics you want us to cover. Yeah. We definitely wanted to do Black History Month before the end of February, and this is our last episode of February.
Unfortunately, it will come out in March, but that's... Oh, wait, no!
This is our last episode of February.
Okay, never mind. Sorry,
I'm just kidding.
I literally thought last week was the last week of February.
Wow.
To me, February feels like it's taking a long time.
Well, so did January. It's taking forever.
Yeah,
anyway.
It usually does.
I hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah. Staying healthy out there, and if you're not, I hope you get better.
Yes. I will link the 2 videos that we talked about in this episode and the article to Angelica's story in the show notes if you'd like to take a look. And we'll see y'all next week.
Yep. Keep doing your own research. Keep learning. Keep growing. And see you later.
Bye.
Bye.